You are tired, not the kind of tired sleep fixes, the kind of tired that sits behind your eyes, the kind that makes you stare at the ceiling at 2:13 a.m., not because you're thinking, but because you're avoiding thinking. You've been performing strength for so long, you don't remember who you are without it. You call it responsibility. You call it being a man. But I've been watching you. Every time you said I'm good when you aren't. Every time you swallowed disappointment and you called it maturity. Every time you prayed without saying what you actually meant. You don't fall at once. You fade, you shrink, you harden, and you call it growth. You think no one notices, but I notice. I notice how your laughter got quieter, how your patience got thinner, how your dreams got practical. You don't talk about what it costs to be dependable. You don't talk about the resentment that creeps in when everyone leans on you and no one asks how heavy it is. You don't talk about how sometimes you don't want to disappear, you just want relief. You don't even know when it started. Maybe when you learned that crying was a weakness. Maybe when you realized love meant sacrifice. Maybe when you decided your worth depended on what you could carry, but somewhere along the way, you stopped bringing your whole self to God. You bring Him your discipline, your services, your endurance, but not your anger, not your exhaustion, not your doubts. And now you're here, functional, respected, trusted, but empty. You're scared to admit it because if the strong one collapses, who holds everything up? So you keep going, you keep smiling, you keep producing, and you keep pretending. But I'm still here, in your silence, in your chest, in the moments you can't distract yourself anymore. And tonight, we're not running from it. Tonight, we're naming it because this is not just a burnout. This is not stress. This is not just life. This is the fall of a man. There are seasons when God does not interrupt your life. He does not send a sign. He does not close the door. He does not rescue you from your own momentum. He watches, not with judgment, not with distance, but with patience of someone who understands timing better than you understand pain. Because some lessons cannot be told, they cannot be preached, they cannot be inherited, they must be survived. And survival changes a man in ways someone never could. Tonight, we are not talking about a scandal. We are not talking about a crime. We're not talking about a catastrophe. We're talking about something far more common, the quiet erosion of a man's inner life. The fall that looks functioning, the collapse that wears a smile. This is not the fall of evil men. This is the fall of dependable men, faithful men, responsible men, men who never meant to disappear. But they did. No boy is born strong. He is made strong. And strength in many homes is not a gift, it is a demand. In some houses, childhood is short, responsibility arrives early, tenderness expires quickly. You learn the rules before you understand the cost. Don't cry too long. Don't complain. Don't embarrass the family. Be useful. Be impressive. Be better than your father. Be what your mom sacrificed for. You do not become strong because you feel strong. You become strong because someone else is tired. In many homes, the firstborn child is not a child. He is an assistant parent. The middle child becomes a negotiator, a peacemaker, an observer. The last born studies strength like a survival manual. And fathers disappear into work not because they do not love, but because provision becomes their only language. And mothers become endurance. Love is sacrifice. Strength is silence. Rest is indulgence. And the boy adapts. He learns which emotions are profitable. Anger, acceptable if it produces. Sadness, tolerable, hey, if it's brief. Fear, unacceptable. Confusion, weakness. And so the boy edits himself. And that editing feels like maturity. But it is the first fracture. Because adaptation without honesty is self abandonment. And self abandonment is the seed of the fall. Where we are, faith is not optional, it is inherited. We are born into prayer, into hymns before breakfast, into grandmothers whispering scriptures over sleeping children. God is introduced before identity, but no one teaches how to disappoint him. No one teaches us how to say, I am angry, I am confused, I expected you to intervene. I believed and it still collapsed. So when the fall begins, we don't call it failing, we call it life. Si ni kawaida, si Mungu anajua, this too shall pass. And maybe it does pass, yes, but it passes through us. Living sediments, living hardness, living quiet resentments. There is a faith that heals, and there is a faith that hides. The hidden faith performs, it sings loudly in church and goes silent at home. It quotes scriptures and avoids self-examination. It serves constantly, so it never has to sit still, because sitting still means feeling, and feeling means admitting that you're tired in a way a sleep cannot fix. God is not offended by honesty. We are terrified of it because if we are honest, we might unravel. The fall of a man is not explosive. It is incremental. You do not wake up broken, you wake up busy. You still wake up early, still catch the matatu, still answer email, still smile when spoken to. You function, and functioning becomes your camouflage. But something is shrinking. You stop dreaming recklessly. You stop expecting joy. You stop asking yourself what you want. Your inner life becomes smaller. Prayer becomes mechanical. Love becomes transactional. Friendship becomes utility. You are needed, but you are not known. And because you are needed, you feel guilty wanting more. And so you shrink again until one day you realize you have not felt alive in months. Not sad, not depressed, just muted. And muting feel responsible. But muted men are dangerous because what is buried does not die. It ferments. There is a moment, subtle but deceives, when strength turns into bitterness. You look around and realize you've been holding spaces for everyone, but no one is holding space for you. You're the reliable one, the stable one, the calm one. No one asks how you are. They assume, and you let them, because you trained them to. You resent the people you love, not because they hurt you, but because they don't see you, and resentment scares you. Because good men are not supposed to feel that, so you bury it. But buried resentment rots. It leaks into your tone, into your patience, into your intimacy. You become colder, more distant, more efficient, and people call it maturity. No man escapes because he wants distraction. He escapes because he wants relief. Relief from thinking, from carrying, from pretending. Alcohol is a relief. Overworking is a relief. Corn is a relief. Emotional detachment is a relief. Each escape says the same sentence: I cannot carry this alone. But instead of asking for help, you anesthetize it. Because asking for help requires vulnerability, and vulnerability was edited out of you a long time ago. So you cope, and coping slowly becomes identity. You become the one who handles it, who pushes through, who doesn't break, but you're breaking quietly. The world the world expects the collapse to be loud, but the real collapse are silent. You don't quit your job. You don't abandon your family. You don't disappear. You just stop feeling. You stop laughing. You stop laughing deeply. You stop praying honestly. You stop loving openly. You just exist. And existence replaces the living. You're not suicidal. You're not reckless. You're just empty. And emptiness is harder to diagnose than distraction, because from the outside, you're doing very okay. You're very, very fine. But from the inside, you're dissolving. Eventually, distraction fails. The noise fades. The room is quiet. And you're all alone with yourself. And this is where now God speaks. Not in thunder, but in stillness. When did you decide you were only valuable if you were useful? Who taught you that strength meant silence? Why did you stop bringing me your anger? And the question that hurts the most: who are you without performance? This is the turning point. Not upward, but inward. Because the fall was never about failure. It was about pretending. And pretending cannot survive silence. Here is the ruthless part. No one is coming to save you from the version of you that you refuse to confront. Not your partner, not your pastors, not your success. God does not violate the mask you insist on wearing. First, you must remove them. You must admit, I'm tired, I am angry, I'm disappointment. I do not know how to rest. And that admission feels like weakness, but it is the first act of strength. That is not performative. Healing is not cinematic. It's an awkward conversation, therapy appointments, unlearning survival, crying without explanation, resting without earning it. It is letting people see you before you impress them. It is allowing God to meet the version of you that you hide. You do not rise back into who you are. That man was built to survive. You rise into someone softer, slower, more honest. You learn that strength without tenderness is violence, that faith without lament is denial, that love without boundaries is self-erasure. The fall was not punishment, it was an exposure. Exposure of performance, exposure to exhaustion, exposure to inherited silence, and exposure is painful, but it is holy. So now you see it, not the dramatic collapse, not the scandal, not the explosion, but the erosion, the quiet edits, the swallowed anger, the strength that cost you your softness. You did not fall because you were evil. You fell because you were useful. You fell because you were needed. You fell because somewhere along the way, you confused survival with identity. And survival hardened you. But here's what no one tells you. The fall is not destruction. It is exposure. Exposure of the mask. Exposure of the performance. Exposure of the version of you that was built to endure, not to live. Most men never reach this point. They stay distracted. They stay numb. They stay busy. They never sit in the silence long enough to hear the fracture. But you did. And that changes everything, because once you see the fall, you can't unsee it. Once you feel the emptiness, you can't pretend its fullness. Once you admit I'm not okay, the performance begins to die. And when the performance dies, something else get a chance to live. Not the hardened version, not the efficient version, not the endlessly dependable version, but the honest one. The one who feels, the one who rests, the one who prays without pretending, the one who sets boundaries without guilt, the strong one without becoming silent. The fall strips you, but stripping is not shameful, it is preparation. Because you cannot rise while carrying a mask. You cannot rebuild while defending a lie. You cannot become who you were meant to be while protecting who survival forced you to be. The fall is the floor, and the floors are stable. You cannot fall past the truth. And once you hit the truth, there's only one direction left: up. But rising is not loud. It's not motivational quotes. It's not sudden discipline. It's not an overnight transformation. It is brutal honesty. It is therapy when your pride resists. It is conversation that shakes relationship. It is resting when guilt screams. It is telling God the things you are afraid to say. It is rebuilding yourself without applause. And that is when men are remade. Not in victories, not in status, not in being needed, but in being known. First by themselves, then by God, then by the world. If something in you shifted, don't rush it. Don't numb it. Don't distract it. Sit with it, because what feels like collapse may actually be construction. And this was not the end. This was the excavation. This was the exposure. This was the flaw. This is the fall of man. This has been The Sense of Self, where we don't rush healing, where we don't romanticize strength, where we let truth breathe even when it burns. Stay with yourself tonight. God never left the place where you fell. He's been waiting there for the version of you that is done performing. Have a lovely day. Peace.